Okay, so in the previous class, after all the basic things, we had started talking about lists, right? So lists, basically we started out with discussing that why we need, we basically started working with the most basic types of objects, that is integer objects, float objects, string objects, boolean objects. So I'm calling them objects, but you can, for the sake of simplicity, you can also call them data types. So there are these different types of data that you guys will deal with when you will be working with Python. So about the integers, these are whole numbers with no decimal part. Any numbers which do not have the decimal part are called integers basically. Then we have floats. These are all fractional numbers which have a decimal part. So even numbers which have a decimal and a zero associated with them, even those will be considered as floats in the case of Python, and in the case of programming, I should say in general. But in the case of general mathematics, these are called whole numbers only, because the fractional part is zero, the decimal part is zero. So but here we will still be categorizing them as floats. Then we have strings, which are basically pieces of text which are written using double quotes or single quotes. Pretty much anything that you put inside double quotes or single quotes becomes a string. It can be a number also, it can be a float also. Anything, if you just enclose it inside single quotes or double quotes, they become strings. Even if you put characters or anything like that also, if you just put them inside quotes, that is also considered a string. So then we have booleans. Booleans are basically the programmatic version of saying yes or no. Yes means 1, no means 0 in binary terms, but in the programming language, yes is taken as a true with a capital T, and false is taken the no is taken as false with a capital F, right? And only this particular combination or sequence of words which spells true with a capital T and all the other letters are in smaller case, they will be considered the boolean values true and false, nothing else. Okay. Okay, just a minute. Guys, I think if you guys have dodgy internet, do something about it, because my eyes are gone. I am not looking at the participant list all the time. So if you're, please try to stabilize your internet. If you drop down and you have to come back in, it might take some time if I'm not looking at the participant list. Okay, just ask him to join back, Ajit. Okay, sure. Fine. Okay, so coming back, so these basically we were dealing with these individual data types and these individual values, right? But very soon you will realize that dealing with just single values is not good enough. Okay, so one variable name to carry one value works for a while, but as soon as you start to do calculations on larger amounts of data, like if there are more numbers of what you say data, or larger numbers of strings or larger numbers of floats or a combination of all of them, then it becomes tougher to deal with them. Okay, so you need certain objects which are also sometimes called complex objects, so that you can use a single variable to name a lot of values at the same time. Mukesh, you're saying something? Okay, so you need a single variable to name multiple values. So basically what you can do is you can put all of those values in a comma separated fashion inside two square brackets. Okay, if you put them inside two square brackets, this particular way of writing all these values will be considered a list. Okay, the official name for that is list. Okay, so you can do one thing. The main thing what we achieve through this is single variable to name all these values. Okay, so this is a example of a list. So these values can be homogeneous, means all of them can be just integers, all of them can be just floats or just booleans or just strings. But you can also have a heterogeneous combination of these data types or these objects inside the same list. Like a single list can have different types of data. It can have strings and floats and boolean and all these things together. You don't need to have a list which only has only one type of objects in it. It can have multiple types of objects. So in this case it is a homogeneous list, but you can have a list which has different types of objects in it. So we took these fundamental types of data, these integers, floats, boolean, strings, and we put them inside a list to make it a list object. So we took these fundamental objects and created a complex object list. But at the end of the day, list is also an object, right? So we can create something called list of lists. So list itself can be an element inside another list. Okay. So as you can see, the hierarchy of it will look somewhat like this, where you will have other lists as elements inside the main list. Okay, so while writing it, it generally does not look like this. It looks. I'll show you an example. It is generally written in multiple lines, so it looks more like this. Okay. So you have what you say, let me make it like this. So it looks somewhat like this. Okay, so you have your main list, square brackets, then within that you have your element list, and as you can see, after every single element list, this is the first element list from here to here. After that also you have this comma. Okay, you have a comma after every this. So these are element lists. This individual list will be called a element list, and this is your main list. Okay, so objects that are inside a list are called elements, just to revise once again. And these, in this case, the elements are also lists, so these you can just call them element lists. Okay, and these are also separated by commas. Then the elements that these element lists further have inside them can be just called elements. As you can see here, we have one string element, and this is a variable which will obviously have value inside it. In this case it was float, so they can have a combination inside them. Fine. So then we did a lot of these questions, so that's why I still urge you to go and watch the video so that you can go through these questions and solve them, and just go through those videos. Okay, then coming to the next topic, that we were able to successfully store a lot of values or a lot of objects or a lot of data inside a single list, but it is will still not be able to access those elements inside the list to do further processing on them. Like if I want to access a particular value and use that inside a formula, let's say I want to calculate BMI of all these people whose heights are there or whose weights are there inside a single list. If I want to calculate their BMI, I will have to extract every single person's height and weight from probably two different lists, and then I'll put those values inside a formula and calculate the BMI. So that will be possible only if you are able to extract those values out of the list. Okay, so how do you extract? So to extract, the first thing you need to learn is indexing. Okay, so you have two types of indexing methods, that is zero based indexing and negative indexing. So when you say zero based indexing, the indexing in general, indexing means numbering something, okay, just putting things in order. Like in a book you have index which tells you about all the chapters in the book, okay, in an ordered fashion. So in a similar way, indexing here will give a number to all the elements inside the list. So when we talk about zero based indexing, as the name suggests, the first element in the list will have an index number of 0, okay. The second one will have a 1, the third index, so listen to the statement very carefully, the third element will have a index of 2, okay, third will have a index of 2. So because it starts with 0, so it's pretty obvious, right? And the indexing starts from the left hand side and goes towards the right hand side, okay. Then you have negative indexing. In this the indexing starts from right hand side and goes towards left hand side, and starts the last element of the list is given an index number of -1, okay, and so on. So -1, -2 and so on up to -8, and then basically we were talking about the topic that we just discussed. We then did a small exercise where I showed you how you can use the list indexing to extract different elements from a list. So when I said fam2, I was able to extract the word or the name Emma from this list fam, okay. And when I checked out the type of fam, it was list, but if I extract fam2 and check its type, it will come out to be a string, right? So here the whole list is being read as a list, but if I just extract fam2 out of it and check its type, it will be sorry, I'll have to run this box. So it will be a string. Clear? So because we are checking just the type of this individual element. Fine. So in a similar way, I showed how you can access different elements out of the list, and I also showed you that if you're trying to access with an index number that is that is not inside the list, you get this error, list index out of range. And in a similar way, in the negative indexing also, if you use an index number which is not inside the list, you get that same error, right? So then the next topic that we discussed was slicing lists. Okay, so when you say slicing a list, it means that you extract a portion of the list, okay, a group of consecutive elements that are there inside the list, you access them as a new list out of it, okay. So here I wanted to access these two elements, that is 1.68 and mom, as a sliced portion out of the original list, right? So when I say fam3:5, we have a starting index number of 3 and an ending index number of 5, and if you count the index numbers here, it is 0, 1, 2, 3. So when I say fam3 to 5, the index number 3 itself gets included in the final list, okay, the sliced list. So 1.68 comes in, and when I say 3, 4 and 5, so this is the fifth index number. So the ending index number, if you see here closely, is 5, although it did not come out in the final result, in the resultant list it did not come out, because the ending index number that you put here, the slice is just placed before it, okay, right before 1.78 the slice will be placed, and the ending index number that you put here is not included in the final list. Just keep that in mind, okay. And that is how you access a slice out of a list. Clear? The other thing to notice is, when you are accessing multiple elements as a slice from the original list, you access them as a list only, okay. So from a list you are getting a new list, you are not getting those individual elements in some other way, okay. Any doubts till now? I think we had studied this topic, but I think we did not do the practice problems, right? For this, that was pending, right? Yeah. So those of you who have not installed this setup, just go to Google and type in uh, online Python IDE. Okay, and you'll find probably this one from program is, or probably I think the other ones also you might find. But if you're getting this one from program is, just go for this one, not a big deal. You can go for this one also, pretty much the same thing. So just delete whatever data is there originally, just delete that, and whatever problem I'm giving you, just try to do it and run it. And I'm more interested in the code, whatever that code is to solve that problem. That code you have to put it in the chat in one-to-one fashion, only to me, only to NW Kings, okay, the host. Don't send it, so don't send that code message to everyone, okay. So, or you can go for this one also, okay. Same thing here also, you'll have the run. So let's start doing the questions for this topic. Just give me a moment. So in the first question, probably you will not need you know the IDE. You can probably do it yourself, okay. But this particular list areas, okay, just create it in the IDE, because for further problems you will need it, okay. So just save the time on this one, but do create this in the IDE, okay. The first question basically is, you just have to give me the index numbers that you will be putting in these blanks, okay, to find out the things. So if you have to print out the second element from the list area, so this is your areas list and the second element is 11.25. so what will be the number, the index number that you put here? You just have to put that in the chat, 1 to 1, okay, remember that. Then the last element and area of the living room. So in the case of last element, we have two spaces which indicates two characters, okay. So just put that in 1-to-1 chat quickly. Let's move on to the next problem then. Just try to do one thing, guys. Don't put one answer at a time. Just put all three answers in a single message. It becomes like kind of tough for me to read. So in the second one, you have the space to put two characters, okay, two characters to get the last element. Okay. Uh, okay. Lot of you have done it correctly, but some of you are also making mistakes. So let me do it myself also. Just a minute, and you can check. So the first question is this one. This is the areas list. Okay, the first thing you have to do is you have to print the second element. The indexing starts from 0, right? So the first element is index number 0, the second element is index number 1. Okay, so if you'll do areas 1, you'll get your second element, right, Krishna? Then to access the last element, I had put like two spaces there, two blanks there. So for two this thing, so it will be -1. Okay, -1, two characters, minus and 1. So this will basically give you the last element right away, and then uh, print out the area of the living room. So if this is the living room, this is the area 20.0. So if you use 0 based indexing, because single character 0 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so if you just do areas and 5, you'll be able to access it. Clear? That was the problem. Let's move on to the next one. Krishna, the thing is, I'll paste it in the chat, but you guys will not be able to copy it, I think. Copying is disabled here, I think. I'm not sure. Let me try one more thing. Does it have a whiteboard option? Okay, let's try that some other time. Let's do move on to the next problem. So in this one, what you have to do is, here also you don't need to type to, here you'll need to do it. Okay, and I'm more interested in the code portion. So the same list areas, you have to find the sum of kitchen and bedroom area. The kitchen area is 18.0 and the bedroom area is 10.75. So when I say sum, just don't do 18.0 plus 10.75 and tell me the sum. Okay, what you have to actually do is you have to access them. Okay, a hint is given here. Access them like that, and then store the result in this variable eat underscore sleep underscore area. So just access them individually out of the list and add them together, and then print the variable eat sleep area. Clear? Okay, so I'll start doing it. So this, the same areas list we have to work with. Eat underscore sleep underscore area will be equal to the, inside the areas list, the area of what, the area of kitchen and bedroom. So kitchen area is 18.0, so 0 1 2 3, so it will be 3, and plus areas and kitchen and what is it, bedroom, yeah. So 4 5 6 7, so 7. Okay, and then you had to print it. Okay, so that's how you had to do this. Okay, let's move on to the next problem, slicing and dicing. Just a second, guys. So in here what you have to do is the same areas list, you have to start working with that. Okay, what you have to do is, now listen to this closely, from the same areas list that you have, you create a list downstairs, okay, which will have the first 6 elements from the original list areas. Okay, so the new list's name will be downstairs, and then you will create another list upstairs. Sorry. So you will create another list upstairs that contains the last 4 elements of the areas list. Clear? The first 6 goes to downstairs, the last 4 goes to upstairs. Okay, then you have to print both downstairs and upstairs using the print function. Clear? If you have any doubt, you can ask me. So basically you have to work with the same areas list. Okay, and the first 6 elements you have to basically put in the new sliced list downstairs. Okay, so the first 6 elements start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. It will be 0 to 5. Okay, areas. If you are in a hurry and you want to check if you got that right or not, let's print it also. Okay, did we? No. Why? Anyone?
The last one will not take, actually it will end there
You
only.
need to provide 6, right?
Yeah.
We went from 0 to first to 5. In that case, we need to type 0 to 6 here.
Yes, because the last one is not included. Okay, it is going to be excluded. So if we put 6 here, we are going to get the first 6 elements, because the 6th index number itself will not be included. Okay, then let's talk about upstairs. Okay, so here we have to get the last 4 elements. So this is your 6th element, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we have only up to 9 elements, so the 6th one we want to get included, but if I put 9, what will happen? The 9th one will not be included, right? The last one will not be included. So here I can put 10. Okay, and if I print it, okay, let's see what happens. So it works as expected. Okay, but let me tell you about other ways of doing the same things. Okay, the easier ways of doing things. So you know what else you could have done is, if your slice is going to go to the either end of your list, okay, either it is going to start from the very beginning or it is going to go to the very end of the list, you can take the benefit by not having to think about the starting index number if your list starts from the very beginning. So in this case, if I don't put the starting index number, still I get the same result, as you can see. Okay, in a similar way, if it has to go to the very end, if I don't put the ending index number, you still get the same result. Fine. Then another thing that you could have done, that if you see that you have to count more numbers from this side, okay, but lesser numbers from this side, then you could use a combination of zero based indexing and negative indexing to get your starting and ending index numbers. Okay, so in this case we go up to 20.0. So what I could have done is I could say -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay, so if I just put -4 here, okay, the one which is going to be not there in the final, just put that index number. Okay, and you still get the same result. Okay, then here also similarly -1, -2, -3, -4. So here also I could just put -4 and I'll get the same result. So all these are possible permutation combinations here, okay, that you can use to slice your lists. Whatever is easier for you to do at the time of writing code, just go for that. Is it clear? Any doubts? Okay, let's look at the next problem quickly. So, lists is one of the important topics because, knowingly or unknowingly, you will be using lists when you do network automation. You will be working with lists so many times that, pretty much every single script of yours will have lists in some form. Okay, so, just go through it nicely. Okay, this will save a lot of time later. Then this is a list of lists this time. Okay, and I just want you to first imagine that if you run this piece of code, what will be the result. Okay, in both these cases. So this is an example of list subsetting where you're going to get an individual element, and this is an example of list slicing. Okay, where you're going to get a resultant list. So just try to imagine what will be your result. If you don't want to do that, just go ahead and create this list. I'll just put it in the chat box for everyone. Just create this list and see what you get by running this. Okay, so if you're using in the in the online IDE, just put this inside a print statement to see the result. Okay, to resume the recording this time, let me just quickly show you. So for the recording, x2 will basically give you access. If you just individually access x2, you will get access to the last element list, because this is element list with the index number 0, element list with the index number 1, element list with the index number 2. So when you just access x2, you will get access to the whole, like the third element list. And then when you go further inside the hierarchy, because we are following a hierarchy here, this is the main list, then these are element list. So for the second hierarchy level, when you say 0, you will access the first element inside the last element list. That's why you get G. And similarly, when you do a slice inside the last element list, whether 0:2 or just :2, you will get access to these two elements as a sliced list. Okay, so then we move on to the next question, where this is the house list. Okay, these are all variables which have these values inside them. So the question is, when you will access house -1 1, what will you get? These are your options. Okay, okay, so most of you got it right, but I can see some wrong answers also there. So these are the values for these variables, right? Okay, as you can see, the white ones here are variables. These are their values, right? So when you say house -1 1, so what do you access when you will run the command house, not command, the line of code house -1? House -1 will basically give you the access to the last element list, right? Out of that, and as you can see, this one is negative indexing, so -1 give you the last element list. But at the second hierarchy level, when you say just 1, it means you have to use 0 based indexing. So 0 and 1, so you get access to this variable bath, which is equal to a float 9.50, which represents the area of bathroom, right? So this was your correct answer. Clear? Any doubts? Shashank, is it clear?
Yes, yeah, it's clear.
And I think Sheikh, is it clear to you also?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then let's move on to the next topic, right? And that is, when it comes to lists, we discussed the basic lists, okay? Then we discussed how we can access the components, which are also called elements, that are inside the list, okay? We talked about how to access individual elements, and then we talked about how to access a set of consecutive elements as a new list out of the list, which we called slicing. Now we will talk about the manipulation, okay, of lists. So when you use the word manipulation, okay, what comes to mind? So manipulation could be anything, right? It could be just changing the list somehow, okay? So it could be changing list elements, right? The second thing could be adding list elements, and third one could be removing list elements. Fine. So you could be doing any of these three things, and that will basically manipulate your list. Clear? Any doubts? So let's go ahead and take an example list and start working with it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take this one example list fam, okay. So this is the list fam, okay. So when I say changing the, let's first discuss changing the list elements, okay. So in this list fam, okay, let's pick any of the elements. Let's talk about the last element, okay, 1.89. So let's say the calculated height of dad is not 1.89, let's say it was 1.86. So in the present state, the list is not carrying the correct value, so I want to change that value. So I'll access the last element, let's say using -1, and I'll simply put it to a new value 1.86, okay. And after that, if I just want to check what does the new list look like, I'll just print it out. So as you can see, we started with this list, but after changing one of the elements, I have this list now in the memory, which I can work with further, okay. So now if let's say I make one more manipulation, let's say Liz should not be, the proper name is, let's say, Lisa, okay. So if I put Lisa here, okay, fam 0, sorry, I'll also have to check this thing, right? So now it is changed, and you can see 1.86 did not go back to 1.89, it is still 1.86, okay, but we changed this also. So now in the memory, the fam list that we have carries these set of elements, which has the Lisa as the name and 1.86 as the last element, okay. So this is how you can change individual elements. Now what about if I want to change multiple elements at the same time. Okay, so let's say I want to change 0 to 2. Okay, and obviously I can remove the 0 and just keep it 2, but yeah, for now let me just keep it. So by saying 0 to 2, what will I access? I'll access the first two elements at the same time as a slice, right, as a new list. So if I want to change these two elements at the same time, I'll have to equate it to a list only. That's the first thing. And then in this list I can basically put the values. Let's say I want to change it to 1.74. okay, so Lisa will go back to Liz and the height will go from 1.73 to 1.74. so at the same time I'll change two elements in the original list by accessing a slice out of the list. Okay, so now if I print fam, let's see what we get. You see, Lisa went back to Liz, 1.73 went to 1.74, and this is what the whole list looks like. Is it clear? Any doubts?
No.
So this is what this is the power of lists basically. Okay, you can very easily make changes inside them. Okay, now let's talk about adding elements to the list. Okay, so what you can do is the same list fam. Okay, if I just run this, you can see this is the list fam. What you can do is you can always add more elements to it. Okay, so you could say fam plus, and you will add another list. You cannot add individual elements to the list. You will have to add list to a list, because as I told you, Python is a very strongly typed language, right? So a list will get added to a list. So me, and let's say the second element is 1.79. okay, so these two elements I am trying to add to fam. Okay, if I do that, you can see I get this as the result. Fine, not a big deal. But if you look closely, what was happening here is whenever I was making changes, the list got changed permanently. So once I made the change to 1.86 in the last element, it kept it remained 1.86 throughout the journey. Okay, and wherever I was making the change, these things were remaining constant. Like here I made the change to Liz and 1.74. In this new list, when I'm working with the original list fam, these values are the ones which we changed to, right? But now if I access fam again, it is just giving me this list. These two elements are not there, right? Although I added them, but they are not there. So whenever you are adding in this way, when you are adding a list to another list in this way, the result, it does not make change to the original list. Okay, so what you have to do is, there are ways in which you can make changes that can be permanent, in terms like changes are remaining permanent, but additions specifically, they can be permanent, but we'll talk about those later. Okay, we need to talk about another some more important topics like functions and methods and all. Then we'll come back to this and I'll show you how you can make that a permanent change when you are adding more elements to the list. So for now, what you will have to do is you will have to create a new list. Okay, something like fam2 is equal to this. Okay, and now when I print fam2, I'll get access to this, and fam2 will now always remain the same because it is a new variable now. Okay, so fam2 will always be this, but fam unfortunately will be the previous list only. Clear? Any doubts till now?
So can we also do fam equal to fam plus this new list? Is that also
Yeah, yeah,
to make the
great
changes?
point. Yeah, great point. Yes, we can do that. But I'll tell you in the coming discussion. In just a couple of minutes, we'll have that discussion. Uh, that what basically happens in the background. Okay, I'll address that question in a bit. Okay, let's park that for now. Let's move on to removing elements. Okay, or deleting elements. Okay, so we have this fam list. This is the current state. How can we remove elements out of it? Let's discuss that. So if I talk about fam, and let's say I want to remove the name Emma out of it. Okay, so Emma basically will access with fam2. So to remove individual elements, you will use a function basically, which is called the delete function. Okay, so delete function, and you'll access that individual element. And if you run this, now if I access fam, you will see that Emma is gone. Okay, now let's say I want to remove 1.68. Okay, anyone want to tell me what should I put here, or is this good enough, or should I make some change in this to delete 1.68? Anyone else? Same is good, or
If it has taken the permanent changes, then yes, it's not done.
are you sure, guys? Anyone
No,
else who
No,
doesn't
I
if the
agree?
think
previous
I
function were not
I put
permanent,
three.
in that case we will have to type 3 here, otherwise 2 will work.
Yeah, but it is the same list, fam, the same variable only, right?
We did not register, we did not like save the fam, so normally it's gonna be a 3 there.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
this will
but
work.
we did we did save it, right, Leo? It is a permanent change because the variable name I'm working with is fam all through the way. Okay, and this in this particular box, when I accessed fam, I'm getting access to this list, so it is a permanent change. Okay, so when I run this code, we had to delete fam2, we had to delete 1.68, and let's see if we were able to delete 1.68, and yes, we were able to do that. Okay, you can see from 1.78 we directly went to mom 1.68 deleted. So what happened here? Did anyone notice? So this one was index number 0, 1, 2. This is the original list where we started from. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So as soon as I deleted fam2, okay, what happened? The
3
index
became 2 and then
yes,
Permanent change.
yeah, so the 3 became 2. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is not just that 3 became 2, 4 also became 3, 5 also became 4, 6 became 5, 7 became 6. So all the elements that were there after the position which got deleted, all these elements got shifted by one place. Is it clear? That's an important thing to notice. Okay, because whenever you will delete elements from a list, whatever operations you are going to do on that same list going forward, you have to keep that in mind. Okay, that the whole list elements have shifted from that point onwards. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now let's talk about how these things are working in the background, why I needed to create a new variable and so on. Okay, so just let's do some thought experiment here. So what I'll do is to do this, do this, what I'll do is, let me create a list x equal to abc. Okay, very simple list, 3 string elements, x equal to abc. Okay, I've created it. Just to check, I can just access x, and you can see I access the same list which we just created, right? Now what I'll do is, I'll go ahead and I'll say y equal to x. When I run this code, what happens? The variable x, I have assigned it to y, a new variable y. No doubts. So going by this logic, if just to show you what y is equal to, y is also equal to the same list. Okay, so what I'll do is, now I'll make a change in y. Okay, I'll say y1, I'll access the element, the second element y using y1, and I'll put it equal to z. We had abc originally, and I'm going to make a change to z, and I'll access y again. So as you can see, y is changed to azc instead of abc. No doubts till this point. But although I made a change to y, if I access x, I see that x is also changed, although I did not make a change to x. Have I made a change to x anywhere after making it? No, right? But still x got changed. Anyone understands how that worked?
It looks like x and y are linked in some manner.
Yes, actually we assigned values of x to y. So when y changed, x also changed with that.
Okay. So let me tell you, when you create a list, what actually happens in the background. Okay. So in your computer's RAM, and it is RAM for the most part, if you are not going to save your results in a file or something in your hard disk or in your drives, it is mostly RAM. So all these variables that I am working with, what the Python interpreter is doing is, in the background, whatever interpreted value these are, it is going to save them in your RAM for the duration, or until you delete it or something like that. It is going to be in your random access memory. So when I ran this statement, what I effectively did in the background is, I accessed a memory location on my RAM. Okay, there is this location which has a particular address associated with it, obviously, and there, whatever way interpreter does it, we don't need to get into that, but a list with these 3 elements was stored in that particular memory location. Okay, and that memory location, because if we, let's say if I access, like as soon as I created it, I access it again just to see what is there at the memory location. So I just, whenever you have to access it back, for that purpose we need to have a address of this memory location. Okay, every memory location, wherever you are storing a particular piece of data, you need to know the address of that memory location. So what Python does is, whatever variable name you are using, in this case it is x, what it does is, it stores that address or associates that address in that variable. Okay. So when I ran this piece of code, when I said y equal to x, okay, what did I effectively transfer, or what did I effectively assign to y? Did I assign the data inside the memory location, or did I just assign the address which x was representing?
Address.
Address. The answer is the latter, which is address. So when I run this line of code, y equal to x, I am just assigning or transferring the address from x to y. Fine. And to check that, Python itself allows us with one provides one function called the id function. So id function, what it can do is, if you give it any variable, it will tell you what is the address of that memory location. So if I just want to check id of y, as you can see, this is the memory address, and if I just check id of x, id of x, and run this, as you can, if you want to match it, you can see it is, these numbers are exactly the same. Fine. So how should I be doing it so that this thing doesn't happen? Making a change in y doesn't lead to a change in x also. So how do I do that? So instead of assigning x to y, what I'll do is, this time let me create that list again. X is equal to ABC. Let's start from there once again. Okay, and I'll run this, and let me also show you this time the id of x at the same time. So we have created this list, and when I checked the address of the memory location, as you can see, it is changed from the previous value. So basically a new memory location has been created, and these elements were stored in that memory location, and we were able to access the address of that memory location. Clear? Now instead of saying y equal to x, what I'll do is, I'll say y is equal to,
So, sir, it's a
Yeah.
question. So it's like two different variables are accessing the same address, right?
that older variable is kind of become a black hole now. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, it's gone. It's pretty much gone for you. Okay, because we ended up associating that same variable name with a newer value. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So now what I'll do, instead of assigning x directly, I'm going to assign a slice of x, where I'm not going to put a starting index number and ending index number. So what will I effectively access?
End to end, same list.
Yeah, the whole list end to end, from the very start to the very end. Okay, this could be one of the ways, or another way to do the same thing, although if I haven't run this, I could have also said something like y is equal to list of x, which is a function which will access x, the elements of x, and create a new list. So any of these two things achieve pretty much the same thing in this scenario. Okay, so if I run this code or if I run this code, doesn't matter, both mean the same thing in this scenario. These can mean different things in different scenarios, but here effectively it is going to do the same thing. So now if I were to check what is id of y, as you can see, 5216 in the end, 4656 in the end. Okay, last 4, it is a different one basically. Okay, so now if I were to make a change here, let's say if I run that same code, this one, if I make these two changes again, AZC, but now if I were to check X, it is still ABC. Clear? Any doubts? So what was that question? Somebody asked me a question right earlier. Can you come again? Who was that? I think Abin or Abhijit or Ajit, someone out of you was asking some question earlier, right?
Was it related to that operation fam is equal to fam plus?
Yeah. So yeah, right. So when we were doing this, you said why do I have to store it in a new variable, something like that you said, right? And why it is not making? So fam itself represents a different memory location where this list is there, this one. Okay, but when I add these two, they are added, like this list is accessed from the memory, they are added by the interpreter, and the interpreter gives us this output, but they are not stored anywhere. Okay, so to store them I have to do it with a new variable, and create a new memory location and store this new list at that location. Okay, so basically this process that x is equal to a, or like a list, or x is equal to a string, or x is equal to a float value 18.0 or something, x is equal to a boolean value, anything, the operations that we were doing on and on, like in the previous class also, what were we doing whenever we were doing things like these? We were effectively just creating new memory locations and storing these pieces of data in those memory locations. And when someone now asks you what is a variable, you can, if you want to, create a definition out of it and tell them that it is basically a way of representing the address of the memory location where the data is stored, or where the actual value is stored. Is it clear? Like if someone wants to get really, like if someone wants to dive deep in it. Okay, any doubts?
Sir, actually, that if we add any element on the
Can you come again?
hello,
Yeah.
yeah, if we add any element into that list, so that element will added into that last of that list, or can we add middle of that list, or starting of that
Yeah,
list?
yeah. I'll answer that question after the next topic. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
One question. So this concept is general. I mean, it applies to every language, or it's specific to Python?
Oh, now when it come, like within Python, it will apply everywhere. I think other languages also pretty much the same concept only. If it is not if it is not an object oriented programming language, then probably it might be something different, but I think applies pretty much everywhere. Yeah, logically thinking, but yeah, you never know. Okay. Okay, so let's do some practice problems quickly, and just solidify this concept. So here we have to work with that same areas list that we were working with earlier. If you have that handy, just go ahead and use it. So what you have to do is you have to create the areas list, and then you have to update the area of bathroom's area is 10.75. You have to update it to 10.50. Oh sorry, bathroom's area is 9.50. You have to update it to 10.50. Okay, and then the living room that you had in your areas list, you have to modify it to chill zone. Okay, so you create this list and then you write the code to modify these two elements. Fine. Okay, so most of you are done. So the same areas list I'll also pick up, start doing it. This is the areas list, and what you have to do is update the bathroom area. So areas -1 will be equal to 10.50, right? And living room, so it is 0 1 2 3 4. Okay, 4 will be equal to chill zone, right? And just to check what changed, we'll print it. right? We have chill zone here and we have 10.5 here, right? Let's move on to the next question. Sorry. Yeah. So in the second one, we are going to work with that same areas list, okay? But we are adding some more things to the house. So we are adding the pool house first, which has like two components: the name pool house and its area inside a list. So you have to add this to your original areas list and store the result in a new variable areas underscore 1, and then same exercise you will do again for your garage and store it in areas underscore 2. Okay, pretty straightforward, I think. If anyone has doubts, they can ask. I'll also do it. So you had to create a new list areas 1, which will have areas plus what was it, pool house, and the area of pool house, which is 24.5. okay, and then you have to create areas underscore 2, which will be equal to areas underscore 1 plus the area of garage and the name garage and the area, which is 15.45, and you had to print areas underscore 1 and areas underscore 2. So these are the two answers which you are looking for. Now just do one more exercise for the next question. Just assign areas underscore 2 to areas itself. Okay, just say areas is equal to areas underscore 2. So you have access to this list to work with, or just work with areas underscore 2. Okay, for the next question. Okay, so in the next one, what you have to do is, you can write code or you can just answer here itself, whichever you feel like doing. Okay, to find out the answer. So you have 4 possible answers. The 4 options are 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say your budget doesn't allow you to build the pool house. Okay, so this is the complete area, the new areas list. Okay, so we are working with this list now. So let's say your budget doesn't allow you to build the pool house. So basically you have to remove the pool house from your areas list. Okay, so basically you can do that using a single line of code also. You can do that in using 2 lines of code also. So some of these options have 2 lines of code, where the second line and the first line are separated using a semicolon. So don't get confused. These are basically 2 different lines, so they'll run one after the other. Okay, they just have a semicolon in between. So these are your 4 options. Just look at these options and find out which will get the job done, and put it in the chat 1-to-1. Okay, let's start discussing this. Okay, so we have to delete these 2 elements out of the list to basically achieve what we are trying to do here. Okay, so when you say let's look at the first option, delete areas 10 and then delete areas 11. So when you will delete areas 10, okay, Just to count it, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it is pool house. Okay, so pool house will get deleted. Okay, so the first line will delete pool house. So what will we have in the resultant list? What will happen? Yes, Gagan.
The last
Garage
page
will be deleted.
Pool house will get deleted. What will the resultant list look like? What will be at index number 10, 11 and so on?
24.5 would be the 10th element.
Yeah, so 24.5 will shift to index number 10. So if you'll delete areas 11, then will it delete 24.5 or will it delete the string garage? It will delete the string garage. Okay, in case if you are wondering. And our goal was to delete these two elements. That will not work out. Fine. So this first one is not correct. Then looking at the second one, 10 to 11. So it is based on slicing. So if you will do 10 to 11, 11 will not be included. So you will get a list which has only pool house in it, only one element in it. If you delete that, the end goal is not achieved. Then you have -4 to -2. So -4 is pool house itself, -2 is garage. So basically you will access both these elements in a list, in a slice, and you will be able to delete it. So third one is correct. Then the fourth one is -3 -4. So -3. So -1 -2 -3. So if you will delete -3 and then you go for deleting -4, so this will become, pool house will become -3 now, right? So you will end up deleting 10.50, right, when you try to do this. Okay, so if you have to make the first one correct, what should I do here?
Change 11 to
10.
10, right? And what about this one? What should I do here?
7 to 12.
12.
Yeah,
10 to 12.
10 to 12, right? And what about this one?
-4 to -3.
No, this one is correct. 3 is already correct. Okay, this option is already correct. I am talking about the fourth option. What
Yes, we will change -4 to -3.
Yeah,
Replace it here.
right. So these all options will achieve the same thing now. Okay, these are all the correct answers. Okay, everyone understood? Or
Yes.
anyone having any doubt in any of them? Okay, so for now, lists, we are done with the lists topic. We have done pretty much everything that we really require in the day-to-day coding that we are going to do wherever we are going to use lists. So it will come back in another capacity in a short while, or probably in tomorrow's class. But for now, we are going to move on to another topic that is very important. So the first part of the topic is functions. Okay, so functions, when I say that word functions, I think you all have come across functions. Every one of us who has attended from class 1 will know what are functions. Is there anyone who doesn't know what are functions? Okay, can anyone tell me what is the first function that we worked with in the class?
I think print one.
Print, right answer. Okay, so these are all functions. Functions are not a new topic as far as using them is concerned. So we started, I think in the first class itself we discussed the first function, that is the print function. Okay, so in a same way we have used more functions. We have used, if you remember, we have used the type function, which is able to take an object and is able to give us the type of that object, right? Today we use the id function, right? We also earlier used the string function to convert any other type of object into a string. So in the same way we have used multiple functions till now. These are all functions. So what are these functions actually? Okay, so what these are basically is, it is nothing but a piece of reusable code. Okay, it is a piece of reusable code that has a new name, that has a name. Okay, this code has a name. You are referring that code with the name type, or you are referring a piece of code with the name print, you are referring a piece of code with the name id. Okay, and what you are effectively doing is, you are taking that piece of code and you are supplying it with some inputs. So that piece of code is written in such a way that it can take different inputs and can operate on those inputs and can give you different outputs based on what you are giving it as an input. Okay, so in the type function, if I give it an input of, let's say, 1, it will give you an output of integer. If I ask it what is the type of 1.5, it will give you an output of float. So the output changed in both these cases because the inputs changed. Okay, but what happened in the middle to get that output, that is the piece of code which is basically operating on this input. Okay, so all the times that we have used functions, there are two things you should know about all the functions that we use till now. All the functions that we use till now are inbuilt functions. Okay, inbuilt functions means that when we installed Python, some functions came along with it. Okay, so we were able to use these functions directly because they are part of the core Python library. Okay, that is like the main Python installation itself. Okay, so you were able to directly use them, right? So these are all examples of inbuilt functions, but and we were using them, or we were calling them. Okay, so the second aspect is, we were just calling functions. Okay, we till now haven't created any functions. Okay, so let's look at the syntax difference when you are calling a function. So how do you call a function? You basically give a function name, and in the brackets that you have, what do you give inside? You give inputs, or the proper name for it is input arguments, or sometimes in some documentation they might just be called arguments. So don't get confused, names for the same thing. So these you can have multiple arguments or single argument. Like in the case of type function, we were just giving one argument at a time. Okay, just one argument, right? So you can have multiple arguments also. So mostly they are written in a comma separated fashion, A, B, C in the bracket. So these can all be your arguments. Okay, so we are calling the functions, and there are different syntaxes also. Like in some case the argument name is fixed, so you can say whatever the argument name equal to your value. Okay, so you can be like a string A or something. So these are different syntaxes of while calling the function, of giving your arguments. Okay, now how do you create a function, or how do you define a function that has a different syntax? Okay, so the first thing you will do is, you will use the def keyword. Def, the full you can basically call it definition. Okay, or defining a function. Then you will have that same function name. Okay, and then even while defining the function, you will have to define your input arguments. Okay, is it clear? So till now we have just been calling these functions, and for a while we'll still be calling functions. We'll very soon in the coming days we will discuss how you can create functions. Okay, so what is when you define a function, basically let's say you gave one argument a, the name a, one argument you gave the name b, one argument you gave the name c. So what happens when you are defining a function is you write these lines of code under it. Okay, and in these lines of code you will basically end up using these arguments. Okay, you will maybe you might be using other functions in these codes and checking, like if the type of a is string, then do these actions. If the type of object b is this, then do these actions, and so on. So you're basically writing a big piece of code under the function, and once it is done with operating on all the arguments in whatever way you wanted it to act, once it is done with this, what you will basically do is you will return it out of the function. Whatever you will return out of the function, that is what you get as the output in real world. Like when I say something like give me ID of areas 1, okay, so when I run this code I'm getting this output, right? So this output is I'm getting this output because there must have been a return statement at the end when the ID function was being defined or when it was created. Okay, so it is returning out of it. There are other possible options also to get outputs. You could be raising errors out of it, you could be using the yield statement. Okay, when a function keeps on running and it keeps yielding new results, and you'll keep supplying inputs and so on. So yield is another way of getting output, errors is another way of getting output out of a function. So these are all different ways, but return is like the most prominent one, which you'll be using like 99% of the time. Okay, so there must have been, when the function ID was created, at that time there must have been some return statement because of which you are getting this output, and you could also be storing that output in a variable, right? So you can have, let's say something, I'll create a variable address, okay, and I'll say ID of areas underscore 1, sorry, okay, and then I can print address. Fine. So this address variable is also created, which has this particular value inside it, and we are able to print it. So we can do it both ways. Any doubts till now?
The error yield that you mentioned is something like an exception when it happens?
Don't worry about it. We'll discuss functions in very great detail, okay, later on. For now, just focus on this. Fine. So, okay. Now, the thing about Python, okay, I ended up doing it here itself. Let me create a new file actually. Right. So now the thing about Python is why Python is becoming, one of the reasons why Python is becoming famous, as we were discussing earlier, you can add to that list, is this, that lot of these things that we need on a day-to-day basis, the small functionalities that we might need in different context, in different scenarios, but the functionality or that smaller portion of that bigger problem, which is kind of a repeatable unit, those have already been solved for. Okay, so already the code is written for them. You just need to find out the name of the function and just go ahead and use it. Okay, you don't need to worry about the backend code or what mechanism was used to achieve the result. You don't need to worry about that. You just need to know the name of the function and call it to get the job done. Like similar, let's look at an example. So let's say you have a list fam, okay, which has the heights of 4 people in the family, and all the heights are basically float values which have their decimal part along with them. So basically, let's say you have a requirement where you want to find the tallest person out of these 4 height values of 4 people. Okay, you want to find out what is the height of the tallest person in the family, let's say. So if you go back to your, if you guys have done engineering or something, whatever degrees you have done, probably if you came across programming earlier, they might have in your C language lessons, if you've gone through, you might have learned about something called sorting. Okay, there are different algorithms which you can use to sort something, heap sort, and all these things you might have heard about. Am I right? Has anyone agrees? Yeah. So basically, if you look at this problem, it is a sorting problem, right? You have to find out the tallest person. So basically what we used to do, when like if I go back in time for me, they taught us C language in program in my bachelor's degree. So they told us about an algorithm where basically you can just keep picking up numbers and just assign it to the highest value and just compare that value to the second value and then the third value, and if the second value is bigger than the current one, then assign that to this variable and then go for the third, checking the third one and fourth one and so on. So, and in this way you go through the whole thing and check all the values, and if this was one of the ways. Then you had other sorting algorithms where you will divide all the values in 2 portions and then you'll parallelly check in both of them and so on. So some algorithms were faster to achieve the result, some were slower, but nowadays and specifically with us network engineers working with Python, time differences of microsecond doesn't really matter to us. Okay, so in this case, the if you look at it closely, you just want to find out the maximum number inside a list. So what you can do in this case is you could just go to Google, okay, and you could mention something like biggest number in a list and just mention Python. Okay, so if you just go through some of the results, you will find that you'll find the name of the function max in multiple results. Okay, so just go through probably a few examples and a few results and you'll find out the name of the function coming up again and again. Okay, and basically this is how even the most advanced developers also do it, because no one can remember all the names of all the functions that are given to you inbuilt in Python. Okay, so you will have to go to Google, which is faster, or you could use different mechanisms in Python itself, but the best way is obviously this one, right? So just you'll go through the different results and you'll find out the name of the function is max. Okay, so what you can do here is you can say the tallest person is equal to max of fam, and then I'll print tallest, and if I run this code, it gives me 1.89, which as you can see is the highest number. Clear? So I ended up using a function in my scenario, in my use case. Okay, now the portion or the function itself holds true for other scenarios as well. In this case, I'm dealing with the heights of 4 people. In some other case, you might be dealing with bank balances of people. In some other case, you might be dealing with the highest IP address probably. In some other case, you might be dealing with something else. So probably the biggest VLAN or something, anything could be the case. Okay, but that micro portion of your problem, which is finding out the maximum value, okay, can be solved by using the max function. Okay, so you need that ability to be able to translate your problem into general terms and be able to find the result. Okay, like I've converted my problem. I did not mention find the height of the biggest person here. I mentioned find the biggest number. So you see that translation, that little translation that I did here, so that Python basically Google can help me out here to find out that exact function for me. Okay, so you need the ability to be better at Google search. Okay, to be a better programmer, to be a faster programmer. Okay, although you're hearing about Chat GPT and Copilot, GitHub Copilot, and like even Amazon has come out with a new product to help you out with programming. So a lot of these products are already there, and in VS Code you can integrate GitHub Copilot also now. I haven't done it myself, but I might do it later. But yeah, a lot of these things are there to help you out, but you still at some point will need that ability to make that conversion in your mind. Okay, because even those tools work mostly with comments and things like that, where you will mention that I want to find out the tallest person or something like that, and then they will do the translation, that AI will do the translation, right? Now another similar problem that we come across is the rounding off of numbers. Like in your bank balance, if you're let's say you have something like, let's say, $1.68, so, and if you go to the bank and if you want to clear out your complete account and get all your money, they'll not give you 1.68, right? They will give you probably $2, right? They will round it off to the closest number, right? Or if you want to see your bank balance, probably they'll just be not showing you 1.68, they'll probably show you $2, or they'll show you 1.7 or something like that. So rounding off is another thing that you might have to use in different scenarios. So if I had this problem that I want to round off, I can again go to Google and I can say something like round off to closest number. Okay, and you can see in the very first result itself they are giving you the name of the function, round, right? So I could just use that. So let's say I have something like 1.68, which I want to round off to 1 decimal digit. So I'll just put 1 here, and if I run this, I am getting 1.7. But if I run the same thing again, and if I just give it the value 1.68, I'm getting 2 as the answer. So now you might have realized there is one issue. What is that issue? That issue is that I knew how to use the round function. I knew that I had to give my original value first, and then I can give another number which basically means the number of digits after the decimal and things like that. So but you might not know that in every function. So there are two possible solutions: either you go through the the Google result and read about the round function in detail, you learn to use it from some website, or what you could do within the Python shell, if you are using it, there is another function that can help you out in learning how a particular built-in function works. Okay, and that function is the help function. To help you out with functions, you have another function. Okay, so here you just give the name of the function round, and if I run this, it tells me that what these two arguments that I can give are actually. Okay, so within the function, this first argument is called the number and the second argument is called the end digits, and this end digits is this argument is written in a slightly different manner. It is set to an initial value of none. Okay, none basically is like in routing we have null zero, right? Which basically means nothing, black hole, or zero or nothing, basically not even zero. Zero itself has some significance, but this has no significance, none. So it doesn't exist, it means it doesn't exist. So it has been given an initial value of none, but the number here is the variable name is number. So you can read about it further. It says that round a number to a given precision in decimal digits. The return value is an integer if end digits is omitted or none. Okay, otherwise the return value has the same type as the number. End digits may be negative. So what do we understand by reading this? The return value is an integer if end digits is omitted. So in the second case, if you see that I omitted giving the end digits, I did not give any number. Okay, in the first case I did give a number, so I did give a value for end digits. When I said 1 here, I was giving the value for this variable end digits. Fine, and whatever I was putting here, that was a value for the variable or for the argument number. Okay, so it gives me an integer value if end digits is omitted or none. So in this case I did not give it, so you see what did I get? It is a whole number, it is an integer. Fine, otherwise the same the return value has the same type as the number. So here the type is float, so I am getting a float if I give some value here, if I don't give none. Clear? And in the first line it was giving to a given precision in decimal digits. So here I gave 1, so the precision I want is 1. Okay, so let's say if I had a number something like 1.623598752 whatever, and I want to get the precision of 3 decimal digits, I can do that. Okay, it will round it off to 3 decimal digits. So these are all different ways of using the round function. Okay, it can even be a negative number, as they say. You will not get an error if you were to use, let's say, something like a -3 here, but I don't want to get into the specifics what you will get when you use -3 and what exact calculation happened here, how it got that result 0.0. Let's not get into that. Let's just stick to Python. So basically, by reading this help text, I was able to understand how to use this function. Okay, so what I did, I used Google to find out the name of the function, which can help me with a subtask of my particular major task, or and then as a second step I use the help function to understand how that function itself works. Okay, so these two steps I took and I was able to solve my problem very quickly. If I would have been using something like C language, which are older languages, I would probably be writing that whole function myself. for my use case, right? So that is one of the reasons why Python is famous. So we are already above time, so tomorrow we'll do some quick problem around it, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Any doubts? Or should we quickly do that problem? It's just a single problem. Okay, let's do it. Okay, probably it will take like 5 minutes, so be quick. So in this problem, what you have to do is you have to use the sorted function. Okay, now how you will use the sorted function? I am telling you the name of the function. You use the help function to understand how to use the sorted function. Then what you will do is you will have these two lists, that is first and second. Okay, I am putting that in the chat. Okay, two very simple lists, first and second. First task you have to do is you have to add them together and save it in a variable called full. Okay, then I want you to, after reading the help text of sorted, understand how to use the sorted function and take that list full and sort it in the descending order to save it in the variable full underscore sorted and then print it out. Any doubts in the question itself? Okay, let's do this quickly. Let me do it quickly. So to do this problem, you need to first understand how to use the sorted function, right? So if you look at it closely, it gives you like these four or five input arguments it requires, but some of them like don't even have a name. So let me tell you one thing about these kinds of arguments which have like these just characters which are there as input arguments. So these characters are fly away variables, okay, which the creator of that code or writer of that code basically just uses for some internal purpose, and then they have no use to anyone. Like they have no use to the user. They sometimes have no like they just have use for a particular much smaller line of code or piece of code within your larger code, but they have like no significance out of it. So just forget about these ones. Okay, then the first way argument is iterable. So iterable basically means something like a list, okay, which you can iterate upon. Okay, complex objects that you can iterate upon. Iteration is a concept that we haven't discussed till now. We'll discuss that when we'll discuss loops and all, loops, the main concept loops. Then we'll discuss about iterables. So list is an example of an iterable. Okay, I had mentioned in the in the help in my questions hint also. Then key is initial value is equal to none. So in our case, key doesn't mean anything, because in list we do not have keys, right? Then talking about reverse. Okay, so reverse is set to false initially. So reverse, if you read this, you'll find out that return a new list containing all items from the iterable in ascending order. So by default it is going to return in the ascending order. A custom key function can be supplied to customize the sort order. And the reverse flag, why are they using the word flag? Flag can only be in two positions, either upright, in the real world also, like either it is like free flowing upright flag, or it is bottom down. So basically it represents true and false condition, or 0 and 1. Okay, so 1 means true, means the flag is up, the flag is down means false, means 0. Okay, so sometimes we'll use flag at different situations. In different situations they might use the word flag, but it basically means true and false. Okay, and the reverse flag can be set means setting it to 1, setting it to true. Okay, can be set to request the result in descending order. So here in our case we had to do it in descending order, right? So we have to set this flag, so we will have to set it to true. That is what they are trying to say here. Okay, so our two lists were first and second. Let me quickly create those. Okay, and then I had to create a full list which will be equal to first plus second. Then I had to create a full sorted list which will be using the sorted function. The first argument that I have to provide is my iterable. So in my case the iterable is the list full, right? And then the second argument, that other arguments I can omit because they, in my case they don't hold significance. The only other argument that I have to provide is the reverse argument, which I have to set to true to get it in descending order. Okay, so if I print, let me print full also, and then let me print full sorted also. So if I run this, this was the full list and this is the full sorted list in descending order, as you can see, 20, 18, 11, 10, 9. Any doubts? Or any doubts about this or in general? If no, then we can close for today. Okay. Okay, I'll stop the recording.